Welcome back to another video, guys, and today we're going to be covering Egypt versus Sudan, who would win in a battle, and ultimately, who would fall. So, starting off, we have a capable army with a okay air force and tank field. Egypt, with around 1.002 million square kilometers of land, mostly desert, pretty defendable, flat, which isn't that good. However, it has a capable air force with 83,000 manpower, 39,000 of those being capable for combat. It has 355 total aircraft, with 239 of them being good. 40,000 reserve manpower, which is a pretty good amount, with only 11,000% of them being trained, though. Country size, I already went over that. Their main terrain is deserts, which we went over too. They have a capable tank field with 178 tanks, 48 of them being good and ready for combat. Their air force is more sizable than their tanks and certainly more advanced, with 355 aircraft and 239 of them being good. And overall, Egypt's chance in this would be pretty good. However, it would be hard to defend the country. But they could evade from the Red Sea, but the issue is their navy isn't so good, but at the same time Sudan's is terrible, so it would be nice. Alright, and for Sudan, they have barely half the manpower that Egypt does, with a little more than half of them being trained, with 12,000 reservists, only 4,000 of them being trained, bringing their total amount being trained to 27,000 men, with Egypt boasting 50,000 men. So that's a pretty big difference. They're also not trained as well. They have a decent air force, decent navy, a decent army. They have a humid sand force, so it is pretty good. They also have some good hard to invade areas down here, pretty mountainous. The country size is 1.8 million square kilometers, which would be a lot harder to take over than Egypt's land if they were to go into force. And this is excluding any outside help, like the United States or other powers. We also have 211 tanks on the Sudan side, which is quite a lot more than the Egyptian. It also has more capable tanks, which is pretty good. They also have better defenses. For their aircraft, they have extremely less, very uncapable for the most part. But that's about all we have for Sudan. But if we were to go really deep into this, we would have to go into a few possible things. So our first idea is the fact that Sudan currently holds a powerful thing, considering that most of Egypt's power comes from solar energy and the Nile River, which they can easily shut down with the use of dams. With this in mind, they can really easily shut down most of Egypt's power, which would be very capable, which would be very nice. Egypt also boasts a pretty strong navy, and Sudan's is not that good, meaning that any naval evasion from the Red Sea would be very good. The only issue with that is the Sudan doesn't have easy terrain to go through from the water, so it'd be easy to set up defenses. However, the Egypt could deal with that using their air force, which is much more capable if they did some airstrikes. But Sudan also has some ports which could be used to shut down some invasions from the Red Sea. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And so overall, they have a pretty decent chance. But now we move on to the fact that Sudan would be able to invade Egypt. I'm not going to say too easy. However, it would be easier to take over the entire country than it would to be taking over Sudan. However, what we do have to be taken into consideration is this right here, which the Egyptians can use this very strategic land area, which is I think it's the Suez Peninsula. You can use that as a pretty good landing force and stuff like that against the Sudan, so that would be pretty helpful. Sudan also boasts a pretty strong power line, one of the more advanced in East Africa. It's also harder to invade. Okay, we went over that. I'm sorry. And from what I'm thinking of, I think Egypt would be way easier to invade than Sudan. However, Sudan would be pretty easy to invade as well, but they could easily hide in some of the mountain ranges down, separating them from South Sudan, which would be pretty good. And this is a full-on war scenario. And in technological advances, Egypt would no matter what win if we were to do Air Force battles, because Egypt would dominate the skies, meaning that air superiority would be a lot easier and guaranteed in the Egyptian hands. However, they do have the issue that their tanks are a lot less capable than Sudan's, which are pretty advanced due to help from outside powers who have advances like Saudi Arabia or the USA. And the USA has stronger ties with Egypt, meaning that Sudan wouldn't get as much help. But we're doing this as if it was no outside interference. But yeah, and so overall, I think Egypt would probably win this conflict. There's a lot of things that Sudan has going for them, but in the end, Egypt has a way more advanced military, as well as better training and more capability. A naval invasion would absolutely devastate Sudan ports, as well as shipping yards. And overall, the Egyptians can easily crumble Sudan's navy and quickly their air force as well, which would in the end result in an Egyptian victory.